Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. Our participants are everywhere. Thank you very much for joining our third tourism webinar. The first two were rather successful, but all of them have in common, and the future ones have in common, is that we deal with small communities and small entrepreneurs. The reason we do that is that some 95% or more of webinars and seminars are dealing with the issues of importance to a former sector of tourism. They get all the help from the government, they get all the help from the advisors, and so on and so forth. But the forgotten people are small entrepreneurs and a small community. So we decided that somebody needs to fill the void, and we decided to be the one. So that is what we are going to talk about. And then, of course, each time we have a theme, and this time we are concentrating on the Caribbean, an area which I know almost well. Not every island, there are so many beautiful islands there, but I had a good 3 months in Jamaica, and I have been visited a few other places. To have a good conference, you need to have a good moderator. And of course, we have the best we can get. As an anthropologist, I know a good moderator needs to have somebody who feels for the subject. And this subject has territory, it's called the Caribbean, and somebody from the Caribbean feels for it. And then we needed somebody who has a sense of government, industry, and education. And I think we got that person, Tico. Tico is the moderator of our panel. He is Associate Dean of Rosen School, University of Central Florida. For those of you who do not know, this is #1 university in North America based on the ranking of Shanghai ranking of universities. And always it takes leaders to make a university to shine. Here I want to acknowledge the efforts of Dr. Abraham Pizam, Yu Cheng Wan, who is now in charge, and of course, Pico himself, who is the Associate Dean. Pico, the podium is yours, take us away. Your microphone is off.
Thank you, Dr. Jafar. I would like to welcome everybody. I'm with you from the beautiful island of Aruba, actually vacationing on this island, and the panel members are from basically not only the Caribbean, but from all over the world, and also our technical assistants, people who are helping us from also other parts of the world. So this is a truly global membership in terms of the panel, but with a focus on the Caribbean. As Jafar mentioned at the beginning, COVID has been merciless in terms of tourism. The reason is tourism depends on two very important or basic aspects. One is mobility, which COVID basically put to a halt. And for islands, the second one is accessibility. So if you cannot get access to an island, it's very difficult for the island to thrive, because one of the hallmarks of the islands is basically to be open to the world. So in that sense, tourism has really pivoted the islands toward new horizons and new opportunities and possibilities that we haven't thought possible in the past. So with COVID, what happened basically is that it impacted the tourism industry, the economy of the islands in general, and in particular, small businesses, because small businesses are very vulnerable to shocks from the outside, as we know, and therefore it is very important to learn how they have coped so far and the strategies that they have engaged in order to not only to survive, but hopefully to recover after this pandemic. We have never experienced something like this before, so it is a life-changing event. Things will change afterwards at the post-COVID, but it is important just to look at the present, see how they're doing, and then make a step forward, pivot towards the future, and see what the possibilities and opportunities are. Today we have a great panel with a lot of experience in terms of small islands, but also small businesses. And I would like to give them the floor, the opportunity to briefly introduce themselves so that at the end of the introduction, we can really zoom in on the topics that we want to share with you and discuss with you today. I would start with Diana. Diana, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Diana McIntyre Pike. I'm the president and founder of Country Style Community Tourism Network, Villages as Businesses, and the president of the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism for the Caribbean. It's a very important position we have, and I'm the coordinator for the IPT, which is the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism, International Community Tourism Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Next, I would like to introduce Clive.
Okay, I'm Clive Muir. Good afternoon from wherever you are in the world. And I live in East Texas, but I'm originally from Jamaica. And I've lived around the US, I've lived in other islands in the Caribbean, and I've traveled extensively around the world. My background is tourism management from the University of the West Indies, and then a master's degree at Penn State University. And then I decided that I didn't want to do another degree in tourism, so I pursued professional communication, because communication is at the heart of tourism and visitor interaction. So I did that in New Mexico. And I will tell you a little more about my experience in the industry, both here and abroad, both in the US and in the Caribbean a little later, because that's the basis of my work and why I am part of the presentation.
Thank you, Clive. We move next to Jody.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jody Grizzle, representing the University of the West Indies Open Campus. I'm a project manager there, and we assist small businesses and several institutions generally in providing them with support. We specialize in the management of projects. It's great to be here and to partner with you.
Thank you, Jody. Next, we have Jermaine. I think there is some technical issues there. So if that's the case, what we will do then is when we resolve that technical issue, then the other panel member will have the opportunity to introduce themselves. So I would like then to defer directly, and Allison, I've seen Allison.
Yeah.
So Allison, if you can introduce yourself, please, and unmute your microphone.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I am Vice President of Community, Country Style Community Tourism Network and Villages as Businesses. And I'm here to present for Rudy, who unfortunately had a conflicting engagement with a major town hall in London on the impact of COVID on communities. And sorry not to be here.
Thank you, Allison. So next, what we want to do next is to kind of have an idea about the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses in the Caribbean. Remember, the focus is on the Caribbean island and the Caribbean region, which consists of dozens of islands, English, Dutch, French, and Spanish. So it's really a very interesting landscape in terms of history, culture, heritage, opportunities, and also strategies. So there's no one better than Diana who can start the discussion and focusing on, you know, her perspective in terms of the impact, the COVID impact on small businesses.
Okay, thank you. Well, my focus on the small businesses are within communities, both rural and urban communities. And we have the program that we call Villages as Businesses. And we have developed a program for them, a marketing program called Village Tourism to give more recognition to communities who are beside the larger hotels and other accommodation. And we thought that rather than just focus on the effects it has had, because we all know we all had to shut down and not move forward as we would like to, we decided within the Country-Style Community Tourism Network to focus on how we're going to move forward. And I'm proud to say that we have a village tourism program that we are putting forward, which is a new frontier in Caribbean tourism to bring the spirit of the country to the world. So we can market the entire countries of the Caribbean, not just the resort areas and so on. So we can move on. Next slide. So the question is, why tourism? And about villages, businesses. And we have, as I mentioned before, the village and community tourism, the village as a destination. We are getting good reception from the industry. We can move on. So, and the small island states and economy, due to lack of economies of scale in the primary and secondary industries like agriculture, manufacturing, and so on, must focus towards a service-based economy in order to find competitive advantage in the competitive global marketplace. So we're showing how we bring everybody together and generating a quality service sector with tourism as the prime mover can help to revitalize agriculture, manufacturing, entertainment, etc., you know, as well as the tourism industry. And it is with this focus that villages and businesses finds the purpose. Next. So tourism, especially of cultural nature, creates new consumers and marketing opportunities. But what they need to do is that they have to follow the protocols that have been established by the governments, where people will not be able to come and experience the villages unless we prepare for them, ensure that we're safe, and we have the protocols in place to ensure that they don't get affected by the virus. And we are presently doing that in Jamaica. And this includes the fashion, music, food products, etc. Next. So tourism has demonstrated its ability to rebound, and we believe it will rebound eventually, but we know it's not going to be business as usual. And we need to get investments, and we're looking at the Caribbean diaspora to come on board in a more profound way. They've been doing a lot, but we need to get it together. And we're very happy that we have Clive Muir and Rudy Page, who are two dynamic Caribbean diaspora persons in this webinar. Next. So we have branded village tourism here under our Village as Business program to market the authentic experiences, and we're targeting the nature, culture, adventure traveler. Next. So our aim is to provide the most complete range of nature, culture, sport, and adventure experiences in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And what is exciting is that we have an all-inclusive community lifestyle experience program that we can package with large, small accommodation. It doesn't matter. What we are doing is telling the visitor, local visitor, as well as the foreign visitor, that we are ready and prepared to host them in the communities. Next. And we have many members, restaurant, bar, lodging properties, attractions, transportation. It's really exciting to see many people joining us because they see that they can participate. So the village tourism is based on the pioneering work that we have done and the International Institute for Peaceful Tourism that has branded Jamaica and the Caribbean the home of community tourism, because this is where it all started. Next. And you know, the IIP celebrated its 25th anniversary in 2014. And we are very happy to participate as the first chapter of the IPT out of North America. So if a town and village that wishes to join with other towns and villages around the world in dedicating itself as an IPT Peace Town or village, in doing so, they can agree to actively commit to promoting values of tolerance, non-violence, gender equality, human rights, youth development. It's very important. And Mandeville, where we are based, is the first IPT Peace Town in the Caribbean, and Manchester and its environment being promoted as the hub of community tourism, marketing the community experience, vacations, and tours. Next. This is our symbol. We have the only one in the Caribbean, the IPT symbol at the park. And all of us are there. And Ludo Moore is in the middle there. And we have schools involved. They're now part of it. They didn't even know that they had a heritage, some of them. So we're now able to educate them. Next. And what we are showing people is that you have to audit first, identify community assets, community participation must be a part of that, and research is critical, and identify unique elements of culture, heritage, natural environment that can be built on the experience or product. And we have different markets, niche markets, so you can target which ones you'd like, and you develop the experiences according to what you want. I want to mention the current capacity is important. We can't have a whole lot of people piling up, especially now, because with COVID, we are restricted. We cannot have too many people in a community at one time. Move on. So the marketing can be done in different ways. You know, we have marketing partners, tour operators, and so on. You can see that I don't have to read all of that. You can move on. Well, we are, as I said, we're pioneer. We've been doing it for over 45 years, and we are training communities to sensitize them the importance of preserving their culture, environment, and heritage. Move on. The customized experiences incorporate local community and the schools and churches. They did not realize that they could be a part of this program. Visitors coming to enjoy the community lifestyle. You can move on. Friends are made. That's what's beauty about it. Relationships are established. We are partnered with Sandals in providing exclusive quality and exotic excursions to communities because we have public liability. And, you know, I'm just showing a typical day. You'll get to see these because, you know, we're going to have it posted where people can come and enjoy even a village hopping combination vacation. Social responsibility, we have a pickup project while on vacation, or adopt a village while on vacation. But we have no Caribbean diaspora people have been doing projects. And what we want to do is show them that we are accountable and that we can do a project study tour one day, hopefully, or a couple of days when they're ready to look at it. But we have to do this virtually because of the situation we have. So the country style 4P formula is potential, passion, purpose, and partnership. It's outlined there. I don't need to read it, but the passion is the most important. If you don't have the passion, then you're not going to be very successful. And then with the purpose, you know, mobilization of community leadership and community members to build a community vision. Everybody must buy into it. And then finally, the partnership, engaged in a network like along with us, NGO funding agencies, etc. Can move on. So we have to build our service offerings on what is unique, our culture, heritage, etc. And the Caribbean community experience of the Caribbean can help to fuel this once given the attention it deserves. So tourism provides a context from which we can truly embrace our communities and villages, and we are marketed as destinations for development. Development means investment as well, and the development market of unique, authentic experiences distinguishes villages as destinations within the destination and packaging the heritage and culture and capital of an area and its people. Move on.
Diana,
Theo, can you just scroll down because you want me to end?
Well, I have one question actually.
Hold on a minute. Just stop right there, Theo. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Yes, I have a question in terms of you're talking about the product and the process, which are very important. But as you mentioned that COVID provided restrictions, how has COVID impacted the way you're working in this very interesting project?
Well, I did say so at the beginning, but many businesses had to close down. They are not able to get anybody to come to the communities, and they are seeking a way forward. How can they participate with any business for the future? So what I said I would be focusing on is what we are doing now to show them that there's a way forward once they follow the restrictions, the protocols, etc.
But can they survive with this project? I mean, how
Sorry?
long?
What did you say?
I said, can they survive with this project in the sense that if they wait, how long will this project impact them?
They can survive because what we are doing is establishing the database of the different businesses that we have out there and finding what services they have to offer, and the local market is buying, for example, from the farms, the craft, etc. They're beginning to know what these communities have, because quite frankly, many of them didn't even know that they existed. So it's a getting to know period, and we have a large and lucrative residential market.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we just go on the villages, niche specialties, Theo?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is just to show you how we do the links. Different hosting, the fact that they can do village weddings and community theater, etc. The village destination, village niches, the area to build destinations around the Caribbean, and we can do island hopping, which whatever we have identified. Can move on. And we're not going to go and define all of them, but it's all there. You know, cuisine, farm vacations, culinary arts, and this is just some of them. We have storytellers, we have food festivals. All of this we have been doing, and we're going to do more of. And nature, village night out, events, and more visitors that are coming want this experience, but they have to know they're safe and they're not going to get sick. So we're showing them how to be well. So we have formed a wellness tourism network headed by Sharon Chambers and Theo Chambers. Very exciting period we're in now, where everybody is moving together. And move on. So we have partners. We have the International Info Peace, UWI Open Campus, Jamaica and the Caribbean, who have helped us now with the entrepreneurship training. We also, can you go back, Theo? I just wanted to show the partners. Making Connections Work, Caribbean Center of Excellence for Sustainable Livelihoods, UWI Tourism Society, and the National Best Communities Foundation, where we do competitions with villages. Okay, can move on now. And then, you know, the society is a permanent member. Everybody is becoming a partner. And what I wanted to add is that we are getting the Caribbean mobilized with very exciting relationships that we have with the Caribbean diaspora, who have, in many cases, the funding, but the challenge they have, and this is important to end, is that they have to make sure there's accountability for whatever money is contributed. And our Academy for Community Tourism has this training with UWI Open Campus, and we have different organizations like the BTEC certification from UK on board with us too. So we have a complete program of training, marketing, business development support, consultancy, everything. So anybody who is interested can contact us. There's our contact information. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share our program.
Thank you, Diane. I would like to go quickly to Clive.
Okay, thank you. And Thea, do you have my slides? While he's bringing it up, in terms of responding to COVID, the Caribbean destinations, Caribbean islands or countries have done quite a bit to contain the epidemic, or the pandemic, sorry. And through providing protection for visitors and for residents. And so they've closed the airports and reopened, but in a very careful way, so that people who are coming in have to be tested and ensure that they're not bringing the virus to the island because of the vulnerability of islanders. And so there's a very rigorous process now to go to for going to the various islands, and it's not just getting on a plane. I'm in North America, and we've had a high number of cases, and the thought might be to go somewhere else, but they have been very, very careful in the Caribbean to ensure that they protect the resident. Something that you also would need to understand about the Caribbean is that the Caribbean has always been a respite, a place, a resort area. And so people have always looked to the Caribbean to provide a retreat or a respite from whatever they're experiencing in the rest of the world. the government of Jamaica, and I'm going to give you two examples of Jamaica and of Trinidad, have provided money to this small businesses in tourism, as well as businesses in other areas. Over $2 billion in Jamaica and over $20,000 per business in Trinidad. And that obviously will help with payroll, will help with sustaining the businesses. They've also provided training on safety. There have been, particularly in Jamaica, there's been extensive training on safety and preparing for COVID. And so when you visit a resort or when you visit a guest house or when you visit any property in Jamaica, whether it's a lodging or it's an attraction, those facilities should have had the training to welcome visitors. So the whole idea of physical distancing, social interaction, and so forth would be taken care of. The tourism development, or sorry, the tourism enhancement fund has been part of that infrastructure in Jamaica to help to ensure that participants or the facilities follow the guidelines, and they've provided strict guidelines. But it also helps for accountability in the Caribbean, in the sense that many of the operators, the small businesses, may not have been registered with the, you don't need to show that yet, but may have not been registered with the government. And so there is some accountability there. But I want to talk about a particular area, again, with my background, international background. I wanted to talk about a particular area of small business recovery and small business development that might help the businesses, because obviously we don't know how long this is going to last. And so what do small businesses do as they move forward? The important thing to remember is that once COVID goes away, hopefully when it goes away, that we still have issues of safety, maintaining safety. We still have issues of climate change. And as you know, the Caribbean, or you may know that the Caribbean is so susceptible because of the low-lying islands to climate change. So we'll have to also engage that issue. We'll have to engage issues of equality, Black Lives Matter, and so forth. We'll have to also respond to the requirements or the requests of the diaspora. The diaspora is really spread through the UK, Canada, and the United States, which have seen some amount of protest. And so there might be some requirement that we look into our own history and culture. So I wanted to focus on how do we craft new narratives for small operators. And some background to the small operators have not really been part of the development of tourism as much as the larger resorts, the coastal resorts. And Diana has had some influence on bringing small communities and small businesses to the forefront of the tourism industry. I don't like to call it an industry, but the hospitality, craft, entertainment, and so forth industry of the not only of Jamaica, but the rest of the Caribbean, and indeed to other parts of the world. I want to focus on two concepts: the concept of narrative and the concept of craft. You can go to the next slide, please. A narrative is the story or the message or the illustration or visual that you use to portray an event or experience. And the tourism narrative in the Caribbean has always been one of welcoming and one of bringing people in, but it has not always been inclusive. And so, and to the history and to the culture, particularly of people who don't live on that in the coastal areas where most resorts are located. This post-COVID or this COVID pandemic has given us an opportunity to really look at the narrative and how we are including or not including different communities in different aspects of life in the Caribbean. Some islands have made some headway into being more inclusive, but there is some work that needs to be done, more work that needs to be done. Okay, the next slide, please. The next concept that I want to talk about is craft. And craft, many people might think is, craft of wooden craft. But craft is really a method or a process or a skill and the result that you get from going from a problem to a solution. So my whole emphasis is on crafting narrative. Next slide. Okay, so I want to give you a little background into one of my experiences. I lived in the Sea Islands of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And the Sea Islands has what you call the Gullah people. They're very similar to the Caribbean people. In fact, they came from the Caribbean up to the Carolinas during slavery. But they have maintained somewhat an independent lifestyle because they're right on the coast, they live on islands, and so they have maintained much of their heritage. And so what they've done to be part of the larger tourism narrative or the larger tourism project in those islands, as you know, places like Savannah and Charleston are very popular destinations, and Hilton Head are very popular destinations. They have decided to use some of their own craft, some of their own skills, going way back hundreds of years, and to make that part of the experience of visitors. So if you look on the image, in the upper left-hand corner of the image, you'll see baskets. Now, in the Caribbean, we have baskets. We make baskets. But these baskets there from the Gullah people are much, much more expensive. In fact, some of these baskets can be thousands of dollars. And the reason for that is they have been able to tell the story about their heritage and interweave that literally and figuratively into their crafts. And the baskets are the major craft items that they do. And they're showcased in different places in the stores, in any of the resorts, and any of the destinations in the Sea Island. So part of what I'm trying to do with my work in the Caribbean and from a diaspora perspective is to help small businesses, small communities develop the narrative of what they offer. The large narrative or the bigger narrative of Caribbean tourism is overwhelming. The smaller narratives are not as known. And so in different communities, and Diana has been at the forefront of this, different communities on the island that if they're able to look at and develop their own narratives, develop their own stories, develop their own messages, then the product will start to be differentiated in the island. It also means that they will have to engage, and there are organizations in the Caribbean. One comes to mind is JAMPRO, for example, that has been very active. The Jamaican Products is a trade organization, and they look at a variety of people. Now, one of the problems that we might have is that we define ourselves as a tourism business. What we have to do, we have to rewrite that narrative. We're not only tourism businesses, but we are businesses across the board. And so if you redefine yourself, then you can plug into different, into different resources. So JAMPRO, for example, has been very proactive in helping small businesses to develop their crafts, develop their music, develop the food, they package food items, and to recognize that it's not only bringing people to the island, but also exporting the heritage. So when you package these things, and particularly at this time, you can do the virtual experience, but also attach to the virtual experience tangible products. I just bought a book yesterday from someone who's involved in the tourism industry and who has compiled some of the sayings, some of the history, and some of the culture of people in Jamaica. And now that's being sold on Amazon. And so we can do more of that. Then when the tourism, when visitors come back, then that would be good. But in the meantime, if they can package, if the small businesses can package their products and their artifacts and so forth, make CDs, make DVDs, things like that for export, because we still have trade, physical trade going on, just not people being able to move back and forth as much, then that will be able to help them to at least gain some income at the time. How much time do I have left? Almost.
I would like to interrupt here just to go to a practical problem of let's say, a small entrepreneur. I'm a small entrepreneur. I have 3 people working with me. I have assets of fewer than $50,000. I don't have customers. I mean, no tourists. You know, the borders are closed. I don't have enough money in order to survive.
Right.
The question becomes, how can I move from my situation, and also for you know, to bring in the other panel members, is how can I move from that situation to those things that both you and Diana have brought forward in terms of opportunities in the future? What kind of model should I have? Do I need to know bookkeeping? Do I need to have the support of the government? What kind of support? Is there enough? And if I'm thinking about, for example, the small islands in the Caribbean, we are talking about they are completely overwhelmed by debt. So the governments, they don't have money. So how can we come up with ideas for these small entrepreneurs in order to help them first to survive this COVID? So it's 6-8 more months, and then to pivot to a new endeavors.
Right. And so again, this is going to be challenging because we're not small businesses have been used to engaging visitors and engaging customers on a one-on-one basis. There has to be examples like cooperatives. That's what the people in the Sea Islands have done. They make their baskets, but they have cooperatives. And the cooperatives are a network, or they come together so that they have a larger group. They can access funding. They can do marketing. They can travel. They can create the products on a scale, and so they're able to have some clout in terms of sharing their products and sharing their heritage. That's been missing a lot in the Caribbean. We are not used to that, and so that's one approach that can be done.
If I move to Jody, do you have an idea why it is so challenging to have cooperatives as an institution in a Caribbean island in order to support small business? Jody, can you hear me?
No, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, just to follow up on the comment of Clyde, where Clyde mentioned that, you know, one of the ways to move forward is to have cooperatives. Why do you think we don't have enough cooperatives or strong cooperatives in an island like Jamaica or other islands in the Caribbean? What's missing?
All right, I'm not hearing everything early because unfortunately it started to rain. I heard something about having enough cooperatives in Jamaica. So we have a department of cooperatives and tip-friendly, and they do try to support small businesses. So they would provide loans and other support. That's one of the things that we do. They have they fall under the government of Jamaica and are managed by one of our laws. There's an act that governs their provisions.
Are these strong cooperatives? Do they have enough resources?
I'm not in a position how strong they are. And they have significant membership. Of course, this is all in comparison to some other service provider. But there is help, there is access in Jamaica for small business enterprises. So you find that some of the financial institutions, the commercial banks even, now have set up micro lending and microfinancial institutions. And this is another source for small businesses to go to.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I have, I think, which is very interesting, what both Diana and Clive brought forward, is the question of, it seems like small businesses do not have enough capabilities in order to survive shocks or to pivot towards a new endeavors. So training is one of those aspects that seems to be lacking. So is there any institutions, or do you think that we need to come up with some creative ways in order to provide those very practical training to entrepreneurs in the region?
Well, we have that already through our Academy for Community Tourism, where we train them with basic skills, entrepreneurship, and how to develop their businesses. For many of them do not have any accounts. They don't know how to present themselves. And so we have that. And that's one of the reasons why we joined forces with UWI Open Campus, because we wanted to take them to another level, but they have to learn the basic skills first. They cannot just sit there and expect to get support if you don't have that. But we have a whole network that is dedicated to this.
Yes,
May I just add to what Diana is saying? So for UWI, our strategy is to help small businesses to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So they have to learn the technology, the business processes that are current for this time frame that we're in. They have to unlearn the bad habits and the outdated practices and the outdated technologies. And you have to be willing to relearn as often as it takes for you to remain competitive, viable, and relevant in your in this economy. And so the university forms strategic partnerships with small businesses like that to support them. This is not about just providing some tertiary program. It's about meeting small businesses where they are. We certify them in what they are doing, not in our own mandate. We put them in touch with subject matter experts. We help to improve their business processes. We provide them with legal, academic, and even mentorship. That's the sort of thing that the UWI is doing, and CCTN is one such example.
So if I, for example, I'm an entrepreneur again, and I need to go to the bank to get some money, do you help me with providing me with a business plan, bookkeeping, and show me how to keep that so I'm in good standing with a bank? Is that what
those are services that can be provided, but it would have to come under governance arrangement. It's not just a walk-in shop. At present, the Open Campus is looking to establish its business incubator, and in that facility, we'll be able to increase our offerings in that way. Right now, we take organizations on a one-on-one level. Sometimes we find the area of interest, or sometimes they approach us. And in that means, or by that method, we work with them. So in executing a program, we will help them with budgeting, we'll help them with planning, we will help to review their contracts from, with support from our legal offices, etc.
And we also have the Jamaica Business Development Corporation.
Yes.
That is doing an amazing job with communities to help them with business development plans and showing them how to pave the way and make representation for them.
I would like to bring in Alison into the conversation. Alison, do you think that, the institutional support so far that you have seen for small businesses in the Caribbean, if they are enough, if they're not enough, what do you think should be added or should support small businesses? Because sometimes one have the impression that small businesses usually function at the margin of the formal economy.
Well, I would like to talk a little bit about our relationship with Rudy Page and making connections work. Rudy, as I said, was unable to join us today, but what he is doing, I think, is particularly relevant to the questions that you're asking, because he is passionate about small businesses and micro enterprises and their contribution both to community development and to trade. And he realizes the restrictions that they operate under. And he has started something called diaspora services, digital services that are to connect diaspora people like Professor Muir, who have traditionally provided assistance and mentoring and coaching in various aspects of business to their fellows in home countries. And he's developing a digital platform for that kind of assistance. He focuses on small business mentoring and leadership training, every aspect of business service training in London, and has seen villages as businesses as the natural link with the diaspora in the UK, so that small businesses will be able to access voluntary assistance online. Absolutely critical under our current restrictions, but probably the way things are going to continue to be in the future. I think it's an extremely exciting partnership that has been set up, just like our partnership with the university, but transforming local communities with making connections work, and CCTN's villages as businesses, I think has a tremendous amount of opportunity for under-resourced and poorly connected people struggling to start businesses in rural communities at the best of times, and especially now.
Thank you, Alison. Clive, I would like to go back to you as a person from the diaspora and also being actively engaged with the region. About 10 years ago, I did a study in Central America in poor communities and looking at how technology can assist them in, climbing up the ladder. And one of the things that we encountered during that research was the fact that people from those poor communities were looking at, for example, a computer or technology in general as a cost. So it was very difficult to incentivize them to engage in programs where they can use, online platforms and so on. So how would you, I imagine that something similar would be the case in small islands in the Caribbean. How would you, from your diaspora experience and your know-how in terms of mentoring people, how would you go about that in order to convince someone that technology is not so much a cost, but it is an opportunity really to recover from COVID and to rescale in the future?
Yeah, well, obviously we are going through a time now where technology and the use of whether it's computers, smartphones, you name it, are a necessary cost, not only for personal engagement with friends and relatives everywhere, but also in business. We are on a Zoom chat right now, and I've been on so many Zoom chats for the last few months that I've gotten so used to them. And so that is also an area that the small operators, I think just about everybody has WhatsApp and Zoom and smartphones now, and that would be a start. But using the technology for the bookkeeping that you mentioned earlier, using the technology for doing virtual presentations to potential customers. I think we all have that experience and we all understand the necessity. Maybe from the perspective of transitioning that to a small business, it might take a little more of a challenge. And certainly that would be an area like the UWI Open Campus, which has campuses all over each island, and so are closer to the communities. That's an area that they can work on, as well as local colleges, training centers, and so forth. And which brings me to another point about rethinking the whole idea of tourism, that tourism is not only through the Ministry of Tourism. Most islands have a Ministry of Tourism, but tourism is also through the Ministry of Education, Agriculture, Social and Economic Development, Finance, and so forth. So we have to have a more holistic look at tourism and by extension, small businesses, and then through parish councils and through local leadership, help that to filter down and to let them people understand that they don't have to develop their small business in their little corners, but that they're part of a network, they're part of a cooperative. And I think that's a big challenge for us because we're so used to doing things on our own that we don't recognize the availability of resources out there.
Thank you, Clive. I would like to go to Jody because, Clive, what you're saying is your premise is that small entrepreneurs who function at the margin of the formal economy may have this technological savviness or interest to engage in technology. And the second premise is that the infrastructure is there for them to perform efficiently in terms of the use of technology. So I would like to ask Jody about your experience with that. I mean, do you think that those premises in the small islands in the Caribbean are there for small businesses which function at the margin of the formal economy?
Well, I can't speak for all of the Caribbean, but for Jamaica, you do have a lot of entrepreneurs on the margins, as has been said, persons who are doing very micro businesses and services. And the university it's not likely that the university will reach persons at that level, but there are some intermediaries. So we will work with the networks like a CCT and some entity that bridges that gap for the small enterprises. And then we meet them by giving them business skills. We help them to organize their work and their efforts, and then we give them backing. So for example, they could access donor funding because they have the UWI as a partner. They're their project implementation partner. We can provide project management services for them. And by providing this sort of institutional support to tap into the funding and the opportunities that exist. And that is how we help to keep our finger on the marketplace. And that's how we also help to make them more relevant and help become our economic growth.
This is very interesting. Diana, what is your experience with, training those entrepreneurs at the margin with regard to technology?
It's mixed. Some persons are technological. Depends largely on their age group. You find that the older ones are not so much at the margin of society, and the older ones are the ones that have greater challenge with the technology. So something that we may think is simple, like getting into Zoom and having a Zoom network, is a challenge for them. Whereas the younger demographic, they just eat technology up. It's almost like a Pac-Man game. So they're very happy for UWI to give them the most advanced opportunities as it relates to technology. That's one of the things that we have found. It depends on the age group. It also too depends on the services, and it also depends on the population that the business is catering to.
Diana, I would like to pivot to you. What is your experience with the training and technology, and particularly the role of women in that respect?
But what we have done is to have them partner with a young person and get a young person to give them the support they require. And it has worked because some of the people who are older who we think will not be able to do it, they finally catch on. It takes time, but it has to be a relationship established between the youth and the older persons in the community. That's what we have done.
Okay. Well, before we go into the break and to the Q&A, Alison, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking about, you're working together with Rudy in terms of the diaspora, and it's basically a let's say, a non-governmental type of initiative. What is your opinion about what the role of government should be, or the official institutions, with regard to supporting what you're doing? Can you unmute yourself, please?
I'm unmuted. I'm muted. You've hit on a really sore point, because I don't know whether this really applies across the Caribbean, but certainly in Jamaica. One of the things that our organization and similar organizations have encountered is a government that loves our ideas and wants to implement them themselves rather than facilitating. And sometimes that results in something which is quite honestly dysfunctional. It's top down rather than bottom up. There's insufficient participation from the people who are really the people who need the assistance. I would love to see a much more joined up approach on the part of government, as Professor Muir was saying. And I was saying just the other day, we're in the middle of so many revolutions. Our approach, which is to foster sustainable community development through tourism, rather than focusing on tourism, I think is a really significant way of getting to grips with these multiple challenges that face us and will continue to face us after COVID. In fact, if we're just simply looking at pandemics, we're told to expect more and even worse pandemics in the future because we have not treated the environment properly. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit about government assistance and donor programs, if I may, because I've seen a lot of compartmentalization. Just as we have separate ministries, we have donor projects that, for instance, try to improve environmental management. But you can't expect people to start doing the right thing just by telling them. Similarly with governance, you can't expect people to get themselves together and organize and become very democratic just by telling them. There has to be self-interest. And so by our having an economic focus, whether it's on organic agriculture, natural product manufacture, entertainment, all of the things that we've talked about, they all can be stimulated by tourism as a catalyst, whether it's virtual tourism or in person. And we're also finding that a lot of people, I think because of the things that we're facing as challenges, are interested in how small communities are coming to grips with drought, with floods, with sea rise, etc. And so telling a story, Professor Muir, virtually is something that can be packaged and it can make some money from. We have to get the government to understand that holistic approach is going to save them money and effort if they become orchestrators rather than competitors. People have heard me say this before, and I think we've got a lot of support for this. Government isn't always the best implementer, but it is the best facilitator. And if we see more government support, there will be more funding and we will be able to scale up. and we will be able to do it in a coherent, coordinated manner, rather than little project here, little project there, without any sustained follow-up.
Alison, thank you. Before we go to the break and we'll have a cultural intermission, I would like to remind our participants that we will have, after the intermission, we will have the Q&A session. And also during the Q&A session, I would like to continue with this interesting conversation about how we can coordinate better, how we can integrate better into more holistic programs, and also how we can be more inclusive so we can move the entrepreneurs who are functioning at the margin of the economy to bring them into the formal economy so they can be more protected and more incentivized, and therefore to become more productive as they are right now and scale up. So we will move right now to the cultural intermission, and then after 5 minutes, we'll be back with the Q&A session. Thank you.
Carol, please play the video.
Theo, the video, we need the video.
Please unmute yourself, Theo.
Okay, no problem. Okay, here we go.
That's the sound of the mighty Beeston Mentor Band. You'll find them playing at this bar and lounge, one of the rest stops on the Beeston Spring Community Tourism Tour. But not only is there music and singing, there's also dancing by the young and old. Our special correspondent, Keneal Gale, even had a chance to drop his legs.
Mentor music is the original music before all of the music come forth, because mentor music is a fuse between the European and the African music. So we have the drum and the guitar. When the guests come, they hang out, listen to the mentor music, and they get sugar cane juice, cane liquor, and they get all different things, and they're able to purchase something there, and they learn about the whole history and meet and greet the people, and play dominoes and so forth and so on.
The community of Beeston Spring in Westmoreland has its own little history.
The community got its name from Governor William Beeston, who was a landowner and a governor who owned land all over the island. Beeston Spring come about because they was a minister of of the Moravian Church named Reverend Alfred Lynn. The church was down at the Culloden, the flat.
Sure. Oh boy.
Our apologies for the sound issue. As I understood from the with the sound, so which means that you will be able to see it and to hear what they're saying, because I'm assuming they have a very powerful message to share with us. Perhaps you can quickly kind of give us a sense of what they were saying.
I can give you a sample of what they're saying. They're talking about the whole experience of showing the lifestyle of the honey stop. You saw the honey stop there, honey making in the community, which is the first stop on the tour for Beeston Spring. And then you saw a farmer who is also an architect. The television CVM news had put it as a tour guide, but we don't call them tour guides, we call them community guides, because they're not there as tour guides. We're not setting it up as a tourism attraction. He's showing his home farm. Sorry. He's showing his home farm where he showed the peppermint plant, and he also showed the turmeric that you can make curry with. I know my Trinidad lady will know all about that, because that is part of the cuisine. And then you saw where they were talking about the dancing, the mento dancing. And Jamaica is the only country in the Caribbean that has mento. Everybody has taken on the Trinidad soca and calypso, but we have mento, and we're proud of it, and that community has it. And when the visitors come, they participate in the dancing. And then you saw a picture of an overseas group that were there from Switzerland who wanted to promote a community tour. And I'm going to be honest with you, they were not being encouraged to do that by our tourist board, because they said they didn't really have any community that was ready. And they contacted Country Style, and we took them to Beeston Spring, and they were very excited about the experience. So that, in a nutshell, is what you saw there. Okay.
That brings me to the one of the questions that we have from our participants is a little bit related to that, which is, are small businesses getting into partnership with medium, large businesses? For example, what you just said, that where these community opportunities exist, but they're not getting enough support, for example, from the official institutions in order to be more engaged in the tourism industry. So I don't know, I mean, who wants to respond to that? I'm looking at you, Clive, Diane, for example.
Let I go first, I'll come after.
Okay.
I think there has been, and what Diane hasn't said is that for over 40 years, she has really tried to connect the resorts, the main resorts in Jamaica. And when I lived in the Bahamas, they did the same thing in Jamaica. We had the Meet the People program, and in the Bahamas, the People to People program, or it's the reverse. And so the resorts and the cruise ships and so forth would try to connect with island residents, and just as the video said. And so there has been some partnership there with ensuring that the communities provide the sort of products and are prepared to welcome people, because to just have people into some of those communities may not be prepared, and so you have to prepare them. And so to that extent, also for the resorts to order or to source their produce and some of the products that they use in the hotels, that has been an effort on the part of resorts to do that. Part of the problem is the scaling, because in many of the islands, they don't have the amount or the size of production to supply the hotels or the resorts on a consistent basis. And so that again is where the cooperatives come in. That's where the networks comes in, because if you have a bad crop because of the hurricane or whatever it is, and you're not able to supply the hotels, then they're going to have to look elsewhere. And that often means looking to other places, maybe Mexico or other Caribbean islands that are not as impacted. So I think increasingly there has been over the years, and obviously there should be more, because now again, we're looking at the totality of economic small business production. But the small businesses also have to be willing and have to step up and to connect with the larger network.
I want to stay for a moment on what you said, Clive. I had the opportunity to study the people-to-people program in the Bahamas in 2012. Right. And one of the things that came up very often was the fact that the residents at that time thought that the resorts, the government, etc., did not really support them. So it started with a lot of bang, but then it started diffusing slowly, and they were not getting enough support. Talking to people in Grenada and some other islands, there seemed to be the same type of pattern where people start with a bang, but then they lose steam during the process. I don't know whether...
I can address that, if you don't mind.
Sure, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Jamaica started with the Meet the People program, and everybody started to copy it, including Bahamas, calling it people to people. But the problem...
That was a sharing.
No. I just doing it as a joke. But seriously, the Meet the People program, the problem we had with the Meet the People program is that the visitors who are interested in the Meet the People program were not happy to go on that program unless they had a choice of paying for it. We found that because what we did through Country Style, we offered both. We offered the free one and we offered the one where they would pay. And they went for the pay one because they said they want to give back to the community. They recognize that the ones who did it free couldn't afford it. They could afford it rather, but the ones who they wanted to see and experience could not afford to do it free. So we offered both, and we found now that the one that they paid now, we got more business than the one that was free. And we've been asking the government to offer both, but they never did. And they Meet the People just gradually, you know, it just didn't get anywhere further. So we would love to revive it and have both options. But what is exciting is that Sandals Resorts came on board to bring 600 guests to one community, the same Beeson Spring there, for 2 days. And they built the roof, the guests from Canada built the roof of the basic school, and they built the beehives of the honey business that you saw there, because the person couldn't afford to develop the beehives. And now they have a thriving business. And of course, the honey is being sold. You can hardly get the honey now because people got to know about it. So that's through our pickup project, While on Vacation and Adopt a Village. So we're now moving more forward into that direction because relationships are established between visitors, the hotel, and the community, and it's ongoing because when visitors are recommending Jamaica, they say, make sure you go to the community that we helped. Just thought I should mention.
Yeah.
But isn't that exactly what Alison mentioned at the end, where you have the thing that you have a project here, a project there, and there's a lack of coherence, a lack of focus on everybody to go in one direction, and then over time, things tend to have unintended consequences, you know, like this one that we're talking about? Or is it something, do I understand it differently? Clive.
Okay, so just to quickly reiterate what Diana said, and I think that was the same issue in the Bahamas. I haven't been to the Bahamas since 1990, so I don't know how it's developed, but usually these programs are driven by dynamic people, and Diana was one, and then in the Bahamas, the person who started that program and who led that program, she was a maverick in terms of getting people to participate. And she would also, and she worked for the Ministry of Tourism. And so she would get donations or support from the resorts through the Ministry of Tourism. But as I said, I don't know how that program works now. They may have institutionalized it or they may have not. And so that's part of the problem, as you mentioned, that some things become institutionalized and some do not. We also have change of governments. We have to remember that oftentimes where you have two parties that are the main parties, when one party comes in, they might change the landscape of tourism or everything else or anything else. It could be in any sector, and to put their own a stamp on the programs. Not that that's malicious, it's just that that's the way that regimes often work. And so because in the Caribbean, things are so close together, you know, the ministries are so close together. It's not like in the United States where you have vast networks that a leader who comes in at the federal level or at the state level does not have the same impact on the local level as you would in the Caribbean. But I would say that moving forward, small businesses and tourism in particular, but across the economic landscape, they have to create a level field for all players so that whether governments change or whatever happens, that they can see ahead and not wonder if their programs are going to be cut or if their funding is going to be cut or whatever might happen, because there's a lot of investment that goes into training, that goes into nurturing these communities, that goes into nurturing these small businesses, and to have that pulled from under them when things change or governments change, that's unfortunate.
Thank you, Claude. Yes.
I have here a question from someone I come from the island of Mauritius, and tourism is one of the main pillars. With the pandemic, the border have been closed since March. Tourism-related businesses, individuals, small, medium, or even bigger ones are currently suffering. Even the national airline is under administration. What strategies have policymakers adopted in the Caribbean islands to sustain tourism businesses? And do you think any government can sustain for long by supporting funding local businesses, let's say in the next 3 years? So that's the question from someone from Mauritius, and it kind of ties into the lessons that we're learning from the Caribbean islands, small businesses in general, how they have coped with the situation and how they're trying to, recover and hopefully scale up in the future. I don't know who wants to start.
Well, I can help you.
I can say what we're doing now.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Now I was going to say this, because this is a worldwide problem. It's only the wealthiest countries that can afford to provide resources or funding in the longer term. But places like the Caribbean and in lesser developed countries, or less wealthy countries, if you will, at some point the resources are going to run out. The support's going to run out. And so you said the person was from Mauritius. I imagine that that's going to be the same thing, that the support may be short term, maybe middle term, but at some point there has to be something else that takes over, or we're all going to go poor. But I don't think that any one country can do it forever.
Diane?
Whether it's small businesses or benefits to workers, I mean, it's horrendous. And hopefully something happens in the near future.
Diana, please.
Okay, I can give you our perspective on this from country style villages and businesses. What we have done is to identify the businesses in the communities that exist that need support, to make them realize that for them to get support, we have to have proper documentation of their business, and also for them to advise us what it is that they need funding-wise. And once we put together a business proposal, we can then submit it to different corporate people. And for the Caribbean diaspora, I have to come back to them again, because the Caribbean diaspora has a problem where they never get to know really about the projects that need support, which are the small businesses in communities and so on. And they can't depend on the government to give them that information. So they have to get it direct. And we are able to provide the direct information. And many of these villages and communities, diaspora people come from those places. So they know that they're going to help them. In addition to that, we're telling people they're not to sit down and wait on tourists to come there. That is not what the intention is. We have to identify the markets for them. But in the organic farming, we're about to do organic farming and entrepreneurship training, because people want to get well and we get healthy. And we have people who are willing to invest in that from the corporate world, because they want to get things moving. We don't get enough organic vegetables in Jamaica. And I think it's a partnership that has to be established. But we have to get away from this thing that we're waiting for tourists to come, because as we've said, it's a long time this is going to go on for. So we have to focus on our residential market for outings. because many of our residents don't know the attractions or the communities. They have no clue, especially in my country, in Kingston. A lot of the well-to-do corporate people are saying, oh, we didn't know that this existed, and now it's our time to go out and enjoy a day out or spend 2 days in a homestay. I find now there's more interest in doing that. So you just have to get it together, get the information together, and then market it. And that's why we're happy that we have a network. And I'm happy I have somebody like Alice Massa, who has helped us so much with the planning and development of our communities and doing the profiles and all these things over the many, many years. And so we're now in a better position to present it to the world and for the diaspora people to enjoy what we have.
Before we start wrapping up, I would like to give Alison the last word. And it is, if you can help us with one opportunity that you have seen amidst this pandemic for small islands in the Caribbean and in the world.
Well, they always say that pre-pandemic, during bad weather, during the winter, that's the time when you plan. Well, it's the time when we think. We have to use this to really visualize the kind of future that we want to work towards. And we need to spread that thought as widely as possible so we get everybody sort of thinking in the same direction. You mentioned the problem of shotgun projects. We try to avoid that by having a very systematic, step-by-step method of preparing villages. Once somebody in the village says, we'd like some assistance, we go to work with a sequence of steps and manuals, and everything is developed and consistent, but can be adapted to individual needs, obviously. But we have the opportunity to scale up if we have enough people saying to government, this is the way to go, please ask the international donors to get behind this. Because then I think we could really develop a movement that has enormous power. I mean, it addresses income inequality, it addresses climate change, it addresses democracy, it addresses so many of the things that are in crisis right now. So it's a big ask, but let's think big.
Thank you, Alison. With Alison having the last words about our webinar today, I would like to thank the panel members. It's been really exciting, fun to talk to you and to have an idea about your own experience and to share it with us. And as my final word, I want to thank you, all the participants as well. And I want right now to defer to Dr. Jafar to give the last word of our webinar today. Jafar, you need to unmute.
Thank you very much for this discussion. At times very engaging. Thank you very much. I'm the only one who's not from the Caribbean area or no connection with there. So therefore it's very difficult for me to say something that would make sense in that context. So I have to go a bit more general, and what I have learned on this during this video, webinar and other webinars and in books and articles that are coming out these days, well, business is not going to be like the way it used to be. Those days are really, really gone. Just think back last year. We were talking about over-tourism. And now look what we are doing today. So we have to realize this reality that the game has changed. When the virus is gone, we have to attract the tourists to come. They need to gain confidence to return to the destinations they used to go, they love to go, they want to go. And therefore, as I mentioned in the previous seminar, webinar, you know, the essence of tourism have really changed. This time, I think the S's are basically safety, security, sanitation, and sympathy. I add sympathy to it intentionally. We need to sympathize with the tourists. If they don't trust us for safety, whatever it might be, for sanitation, etc., we have to sympathize. Who is teaching? Who's dealing with that? How do we have people to have the art of sympathizing with the tourists, empathizing with the tourists, and so on and so forth? So I think we were talking about small business. Small is up for definition, but how small is a small? How small is a community, should be a community called it small? Well, to me, there are some small businesses that in North America, we call them mama papa operation. Somebody with 4 rooms, 5 rooms, 6 rooms maximum. Somebody with a small restaurant and 6 tables, and that's all it is. But they had to do nothing because the tourists were coming. The demand was there. They didn't have to do anything, and the tourists were coming. But those are gone. Now the other thing is, you know, we talk about importance of training, importance of media, electronic media, etc. But do they know what they do not know? And I'm afraid some of the small businesses do not know what they do not know. And some of the big businesses don't know that they do not know. So I think, who is doing that? I mean, in the Caribbean, are we saying that we have training schools, get ready, use it? Or are we going to them and say, well, you're just sitting there and waiting, we can help. Do we go to seek them, or do we expect them to come and seek help from us? I think the game has to change. If we are talking about small businesses, we have to go to them. We need to find them. We need to educate them that while you are waiting for the news on television, there's time. And this time could be used for training, for education, learning about bookkeeping, finance, going to the bank, getting loans. But no, I don't know about Caribbeans, but by and large, nobody's going to small business and say, while you're waiting, there are things you can do, and let us help you. So this is something I wanted to add. Again, it may not be within the context of the Caribbean. It's my own assessment of the situation, and I hope it makes sense to some of the members of the audience. If I may also add that we have this is a monthly webinar. We have had 3 of them. This was the 3rd one. The next one is going to be next month. I think it's the 12th, the 2nd Saturday of each month. It's going to be of some interest to the Caribbean islands as well. The subject is somehow different. It's about study abroad, universities that send their students for a semester to other countries, other destinations. And I know some of them come to the Caribbean islands, and they go to small villages because they want to learn how things are. They do volunteer work, etc. So we will have speakers from universities who send hundreds and hundreds of students to Mexico, Caribbean, Costa Rica, etc., etc., and talk about how the demand has to adjust itself to the reality of the supply, and how the host community could be accommodated by us, the demand people, know what they need, what they need to have. And then 2 months from now, in the next month, the following month, we will be discussing women in tourism, but again, women in small community tourism. Small community, small entrepreneur is always the theme of the session. So I invite all of you to join us in the future sessions. Now, Reza Sultan is our producer. We have a website. The past webinars are there with the tapes and everything, so you can enjoy them as well and be part of the game in the future. Thank you very much, Tico, for the wonderful job you did.
Thank you. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Stay safe.
Directly also broadcasted on the Facebook and Instagram as well. Thank you very much. It was very good.
Thank you.